Hello and welcome to another edition of UC Tech Chat. My name is Sam Stiles. This is Matthew Hilton, a leading VoIP expert. And today we are going to be talking about common pitfalls and mistakes when picking out UC solutions and buying phone systems. All right, Matthew, let's jump into it. So the first question I have is, it's easy to get confused when we're talking about marketplace and diversity and how large, just in general, the scope of UC and communications can be. And a lot of times I've heard rumors of people buying and then having buyer's remorse and getting frustrated. So what do you think the number one reason or cause of this might be?
So there's multiple causes, obviously, and it depends really on your particular instance. Mm-hmm. However, repeatedly what I see customers doing is they'll latch onto one particular aspect of a phone system. Maybe it's a particular manufacturer that they like. Maybe it's the cost. Maybe it's a particular feature that this company does really well. And what they'll do is they'll limit their search to just that one area. And what that really does is put you at a disservice because you're not looking at the entire landscape. Sure. As you mentioned, the landscape has grown tremendously over the last few years. Mm-hmm. And so there are a lot more players in the space. So that kind of clouds the picture. Yeah. But the more information you have, the more data you can gather, the more companies you can look at, the better you can be at finding out what the better solution is for your company as a whole.
Yeah. So with someone with limited experience, maybe like myself, what would you say the best way to approach that landscape like you talked about? What's the best way to approach that situation? Yeah,
so there are plenty of companies out there that have an IT generalist or that have a whole group of people that are familiar with the IT systems in place, but they may not be voice experts. They might not be unified communication experts, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And so that obviously puts them at a disadvantage. How do you really understand what you're being presented if you don't know the terms and technology?
Right.
And so I think the number one thing that I can recommend to people is to utilize local resources. So if you find a particular phone system, find out what resellers or what partners they have in your area and really get them to come in and explain to you in detail, in layman's terms even, what this solution is doing for you versus the competitors that are out there. You don't have to know specific terminology.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily need to know that one system's called Call Park and one's called Call Orbit and one's called System-Wide Hold. All I know as a business is I want to be able to take a phone call, answer it at my desk, place them on hold, and then answer that somewhere else. So you can ask and get a lot of detail by just asking those types of business logic questions.
Gotcha. Okay. And so I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about value and cost, two things that are important to business owners or really anyone working, obviously. So how do we distinguish these two?
Yeah, so a lot of times, again, that gets muddied as well, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times people think that cost is the same as value.
Sure.
And what we're really talking about is value as a whole is what is this solution doing for your entire business? It's not the price that you're paying.
Yeah.
It's not the first price on the quote. It's not the long-term price, but it's what is the system doing to enhance your business? You must be buying it for a particular reason, right?
Yeah.
And so unfortunately what a lot of people do is they say, okay, the value of the system is the price or it's the cost. Sometimes it's the first quote that they see, sometimes it's a quote plus additional years of maintenance and renewals and things like that. But really the value of the system comes from what is your company getting out of that cost. Mm-hmm. So if I need to, for example, I need to justify hiring 3 new employees during the holidays because my phone system currently doesn't keep up, I don't have enough employees, and so we're getting bad customer satisfaction scores during our prime busy season, right? Yeah. And so the value for a phone system for me would be having the ability to justify hiring 3 new employees based on the data I'm getting from my phone system.
Okay.
So it's looking at more than just the cost or the price. It's looking at really the business, again, business processes, business logic. How is the solution going to work for me in the long term, not just the first cost or long-term cost for that matter.
For sure. And I want to take a step back from the business process, like you mentioned, and talk about the other pitfalls that I might be missing. If I'm looking in the grand scheme of things, what am I missing? What is there something that I haven't covered?
Yeah, so I mean, it's really difficult if you don't know what you're going after, right?
Yeah.
How are you able to compare different quotes? How are you able to figure out what the value is?
Sure.
And so I'd like to take that back and I say, well, don't look at features and functions because at this point, most systems have the same type of features and functions. Mm-hmm. What it comes down to is ask probing questions for your business.
Okay.
So if you know that you want to get X, Y, and Z out of a particular product, you don't have to know that I need to have, this feature, this function, that feature, this function. What you really need to know is, does it solve the business problem? So just again, in layman's terms, go ahead and ask, can I do X, Y, or Z? And
Right.
as you ask that of multiple vendors and multiple partners, you'll be able to get a better idea of which systems actually will work for you as a whole in the long term. And then, of course, by knowing it in layman's terms, you're never going to end up with that buyer's remorse because you're going to know inherently, just in general speak, what the system does and how it operates, not in features and functions.
Right. Awesome. Well, I'm sure you could go on about this all day, and there's a lot to talk about regarding this based off of what we initially started with. But I think that's going to wrap it up and do it for this edition of UC Tech Chat. Once again, my name is Sam Stiles. This is Matthew Hilton, VoIP expert, and thanks for joining us.